Hey, and welcome back, treasure hunters. So today I'm going over my top 10 Etsy sales of 2021. Now, if you haven't seen any of my videos before, I am Joe, the treasure hunting dad, and what I do is run through thrift stores, estate sales, estate auctions, anywhere I can find valuables at a really good price, good discount, and that I can flip for a profit. So I stole a good variety of things on Etsy over 2021. So here are my top 10. And a quick note before I show you some of my sales here and the profit that I made. I do this to encourage others and to teach others what to look for and what could sell online. Things that you can find out at the thrift store. All of this stuff was either purchased at an estate auction or a thrift store or something similar. Anybody can do it. I hope that from showing these different items to you guys, you can see some similarities in things that you pick up and turn them for a profit. I've been doing this for a while now, and I know that when I first started, it was a guess and check. It was a learning process, and it took me a while. So me being able to share this information with you guys will hopefully speed that learning curve up and help you guys start making really nice profit soon from flipping things from thrift stores.
All right. So the first item I'm going to review for my 2021 Etsy sales is this large, it's a polished banded agate stone bowl. And I picked this up at a Goodwill, and this piece was honestly only $2.99. And there was a very small chip here shown in the photos. That was the only issue with it, and I'm not really sure. I don't know. They just priced it really low, I guess, because of that. But it's a really beautiful stone bowl. I saw this. I didn't even look up like comparable sales or anything, just because I knew, like, any kind of stone bowl like this is going to be fairly expensive. But it's super well made, has really nice color, nice bands, and I was honestly really surprised to see it for, that cheap. But picking this up for only a couple bucks, like $3. I priced this at $3.50, and that's what I ended up selling it for. But this, with all of these sales, I do have to pay for shipping. So shipping for this is only like $20 or so. So it's obviously still a really good investment. Anytime you can find pieces like this, it didn't have any kind of, maker's mark or anything like that, but these are very expensive. You could imagine, the size of this was, 15 or 14 inches across. So it was pretty large. So anytime you can find a piece like this for that cheap, it's always a good buy. So my next notable sale was I found a pair of these mid-century kind of geometric abstract art. And they were both done by artist Dunlap. And here's one. Obviously tons of matting going in, so they were professionally framed. Both pieces look pretty similar. Here's a close-up. So one was titled Phi, and the other one was titled Omega, both signed by the artist Dunlap. I did find a couple other listings that were, they said C. Dunlap, but I never found out the first name of the artist. But I've got both of these pieces for $2.99 each. They were in really hefty metal frames. Here's a close-up of the signature and the title of both in pencil. So picked these up. They weren't entirely big or anything, only about 12 inches across. I decided to sell these as a pair just because, they weren't that big, and they just go better as a pair, I think, especially like in decor-wise. You can put them next to each other, or over top of each other, or offset, or whatever you wanted to do. Ended up selling these. I did have a coupon running, so I believe I sold both these pieces for about $275 minus the shipping cost, which wasn't that expensive. So my next sale was actually not an art piece. It was a table or desk lamp, and this is an antique desk lamp. I picked this up at Goodwill, and it was honestly only priced for $5, which was very surprising to me. And a lot of times with lamps, they never have the original shade. It's either been changed out just to match, the decor over time in the person's house, or they've been damaged to a point where they're just not there anymore. They're, thrown away or whatever else. But this actually came with the original shade, and you can see right here that was the only damage to the shade, was this little tear, which isn't super noticeable or anything, but it was a very nicely done ceramic lion here. It's got the 2 pull chains with these solid brass or bronze pieces on the end that were really heavy. For only $5, I thought this was an absolute steal. There was no maker's marks on it. I wasn't able to identify exactly where this came from. I did post it on a couple different antique groups, and I had a few different people saying it was European, Italian, or whatever else. So I just labeled it as European. Here at the top, this is a pretty good indicator, especially like an older lamp like this. You can see these 2 dual sockets, kind of the way these are positioned. I don't know why this one is orange. This light bulb is orange, but if the lamp looks antique or old, and you see this with that combined with the pull chains and everything else, you could definitely tell that this was an old original antique lamp. Here's a close-up of the tear. Just a couple other shots. It's on a wood base. So everything about this lamp looks pretty original, and for only $5, it was an absolute steal. And I did sell this for $400. The only issue with that was seeing that this came with the original shade. I had to ship the lamp in one box and the shade in another box, and it did go a pretty fair distance. So shipping altogether cost me around $70. For a $5 investment, that just knocks off. So I probably made a profit of about $300. My next sale here, this was a vintage piece of Japanese studio pottery. It's actually called a Unomi, and the way that the glaze is over top, why it's so thick, is to protect anyone using it from heat. At least that's what I read. It's the Shino glaze, and it's pretty recognizable. I actually saw this at a Savers, and it was only a couple dollars, like $1.99 or something. For some reason, I didn't pick it up when I first saw it, and it ate at me, so I had to go back. I went home, did some research, and then I ended up driving 20 minutes back to the Savers that I originally saw it at, and it was still there, and I immediately picked it up. This was marked on the bottom. Here's a couple other pictures. You can see the Shino glaze. This is pretty common, but it's very well done. These are actually very collectible and very difficult to make, which I learned just doing some research. But here you can see the bottom, and there's a mark here on the bottom, and I was able to look through some different Japanese studio pottery marks. Was able to ID the artist as Kato Toyohisa. Probably not pronouncing that correctly, but I did sell this to somebody who collects Japanese pottery, and I had it listed for $400, but I think I had it 20% off or something around that, so it ended up being around $340. It was a very small piece of pottery, so it was really easy to ship. I did overpack it. This would never look like, unless you were familiar with different types of pottery or saw this kind of stuff at auction before, it would be difficult to identify this as a more valuable piece. So that's something to keep in mind when looking at studio pottery. It's all about, being able to recognize different characteristics of the pottery, whether it's the glaze or the overall aesthetic, and those could really reveal some value in different pieces. So this was a really great find, but also very rare. I've never found anything like this besides this piece. So here's my next Etsy sale I wanted to show you. This is an original oil painting on canvas. It was fairly large, at 30 at 26. I actually got this at an online estate sale. And the reason why I ended up only paying, I think, $2 for this piece, and that didn't involve shipping, but shipping was only probably like $30, and I did get another piece out of that. The reason I got this so cheap is because it was misidentified. So this was actually done by Edgardo Sarmiento, who was out of the Philippines. And here you can see it says Manila, dated 65, but they actually had this as Jarmiento, which obviously is wrong. But all I did was search a couple different things. I didn't find anything with Jarmiento, and then this kind of looked like an S to me, so I did a search around that and found a bunch of listings for Edgardo Sarmiento. So that was just the auction house misidentifying that, thinking, not doing their research, just reading it and, not looking into it further. And I found that his work, was selling between $400 and $600. I had this priced at $400, and I did have this also during a sale, so I made $340 revenue off of this. But it's just a really nice, scene here of life. It looks like a fisherman's life in the Philippines, but it was in very good condition, so it was a very cool estate sale find for only $2. So my next sale here is a framed vintage etching, and it's hand colored, and this was done by the artist de Harcourt, and it was after Louise Eichhardt, who is very well known in this style of etching, especially with women and fashion and even involving animals. I actually originally thought this was an Eichhardt piece, but it was not signed Eichhardt anywhere. I thought it was an Eichhardt piece and just titled de Harcourt, but it was actually de Harcourt is the artist on this piece. So I had this priced for a lot more at the beginning, but then I was notified that this was not actually Eichhardt piece. It was a different artist who did work after him. Either way, I picked this up at a Goodwill for $5.99. You can see the detail and nice coloring, and if you look up Louise Eichhardt and the work that he did, it looks very similar to that work. It is hand signed and penciled and numbered 12 of 25 or 250. I'm not really sure. It's probably 25, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And the back, it did come from a gallery. I don't have a close-up of the gallery sticker there, but you can tell this is an etching just by, you can see the indented plate mark around here in a circular fashion, and also just the way that all the lines are put in, and then the coloring. If you looked a lot closer at this, you'd be able to tell that this is an etching. So it's really nicely done. Eichhardt's work sells really well, and you can always, if you ever see any original Louise Eichhardt etchings and stuff at a thrift store, obviously pick them up right away. You'll be able to make a really nice profit off of those. Even that this was just done after him, I was still able to sell this for $450. My next sale here I found at Goodwill for $5.99, and it was done by the Cubist artist Gustavo Martinez. And as soon as I saw this, it was done on canvas, but it was a very soft canvas. A lot of times the canvas that you'll find, especially, by most artists, are more rigid. For some reason, this was really kind of a soft canvas. I don't know if that has any significance to the art itself, but just something to note. Did look a little different to me, and when I first saw it, a lot of times, like this type of art, it's just so different from a lot of the art you'll see at the thrift stores. So most of the oil paintings on canvas are of landscapes or forest and mountains and that kind of thing. So when I saw this of these brightly colored watermelons just kind of sitting there, and also the way the signature is, it's pretty easy to read. I don't know. I saw the name right away and was able to Google search his name and came up with a lot of different auction results. The canvas wasn't in perfect condition. There were some missing paint here and there, but this was from the 60s, so I guess that's kind of given, especially if it was donated. And there weren't like any huge tears or any damage to the canvas, just a little bit of missing paint. And then here is the back of the canvas itself. So really cool, unique find out at the thrift stores for only $5.99, and I did sell this for $450 on Etsy. So my next Etsy sale here, this was a very large piece of studio pottery I found at a Goodwill for $10.99, and this was done by Stephen Hill, who is a very well-known potter. I picked this up, one, given the size and the overall just style of this. I knew it was studio pottery right away, and it also was signed on the back. So given all that, it was evident it was studio pottery. And then given the size and just the overall technique, and you could tell it's expertly done. The glazing is very well done, the coloring, and pretty obvious to me. I didn't exactly know it, even though that I have sold one other piece of Stephen Hill pottery. The mark looked familiar to me, but I couldn't remember who did it. And I just posted this on a Studio Pottery Facebook group, and it was identified right away. And I actually have this picture upside down. This is supposed to be the S and then the H. So either way, it was 18 by 18 inches. So it was a large piece of studio pottery, but in perfect condition. Even had the wire in the back because this is meant to be hung on the wall. Or, if somebody wanted to, they could use it as a centerpiece also. But very beautiful piece of studio pottery and very well-known listed studio potter. But I ended up selling this for $475 off of the $10.99 investment. So my next sale here, this was a piece I picked up at Goodwill for $10.29 and caught my eye right away, just given the, anytime I see these, a hand-signed and numbered piece, I always will double check it. And then, I flipped it around and saw that it did have this gallery sticker on the back, or gallery, information. It's got the Mystic Seaport title. It is signed and stuff, and then the artist is John Stobart. So all I had to do was a quick search on, limited lithographs by Stobart, and I found a bunch of different listings, and they were all priced even higher than what I had a price for only $10.29. A lot of times, if you want to sell this stuff quicker, you don't really want to match the price of everything else you see. A lot of the pieces that I saw for sale by him were in the $600 to $700 range, and I did have it priced a little bit higher than this, but I just kept knocking it down because in the end, you have to think about, if you try to get the maximum that you want out of everything, things are going to sit in your store for a lot longer. So I just wanted to turn a profit. You have to think what you paid for it, and would I have sold this for $300? Of course, because I only paid $10 for it. So those are just kind of different things you got to think about. But it's a absolutely beautiful piece of art, very detailed, and his work is really collectible. Here you can see the title here, Mystic Seaport, and all the other information. It's hand signed and numbered, and even given the number is extremely high, but his work was, very collectible and everything else. And it does have the special museum glass, UV resistant. Here's the certificate of authenticity. So it's a very, very cool piece to find, and was obviously well worth the investment. I only have a couple pieces to show you left. This is the second to last one. This sculpture I picked up at an estate auction that was out in California. It was online, obviously. And this is a bronze statue or sculpture by Dennis Smith. And I picked this up for $60 plus shipping, which was only probably like, $20 or $30. But it's a mother and daughter sculpture. The reason why I picked this up is because it was not identified in the listing. It was just a bronze sculpture. It did not specify any kind of artist. You can see it's got kind of almost a brutalist nature, I guess. But you can even see like the thumbprints here in her head. This was a limited edition, number 4 of 30. I'll show you that in a minute. I just did some searches. Here's the 4 of 30, and it is signed Smith. All I did was, I saw that, it was a nice bronze sculpture, and they did show a picture of the signature. So I just did bronze sculpture, around signed Smith, and there's obviously multiple people named Smith that did bronze work, but this Dennis Smith did a lot of work with mother and daughter or children and this style. So it was pretty easy to identify. His sculptures were selling anywhere from $500 to over $2,000, given the complexity and size of the sculpture. This was a smaller piece. A lot of the other pieces were listed that were a lot bigger in the 20-inch to 30-inch height range. So this was a smaller piece, but it was very low numbered and very well done. I did see comparable pieces selling on eBay for over $1,000, more in the $1,500 range, and I did have it priced that high, but I just kept knocking it down. And then somebody finally offered me, asked if I'd take $575 for it. I think I had it priced around $800, and I just took it because I only paid $60 for it. And of course, I'm going to take that profit margin every time. So, and they collected this work and were extremely happy. I did get a 5-star review from this sale. So it was all in all a really good auction purchase. So my top Etsy sale from 2021 was actually a piece I picked up on Buy Sell Trade on Facebook. And I was randomly searching through Buy Sell Trade, and somebody local had this listed. It was extremely dirty and dusty, and they had it listed for $40. So I went, picked it up, cleaned it up a lot, and ended up throwing it up on here for $850 and sold it shortly after. It's an antique, hand-carved Anglo-Indian teak kind of side table, I guess, with some inlay on the top. It's very detailed, and it was in really good condition. The only thing wrong with it was one of these little tusks was missing from one of the elephants, but beyond that, it was in super good condition. I did see comparable tables listed anywhere from $500 to ones that were in a lot worse shape to well over $1,500, almost upwards of $2,000. It was a rare but really cool find. I think that if the seller just would have done a little more research on this piece and cleaned it up a bit, could have got obviously a lot more, even on Buy Sell Trade, which isn't the best place to sell stuff like this because people are always looking for deep discounts. I did have to ship this out to California though, so that was at least I think it was like $80 or $90 to ship it out there because this was all one piece, so I couldn't disassemble it or anything. That's something to keep in mind with this stuff, but I figured for a $40 investment, I'd be willing to pay anything. If someone bought it for $850, I would obviously front the shipping charges for that. Really cool find, and pretty rare to find something like this on Buy Sell Trade, at least in my experience.
Well, thanks for watching. Those are my 2021 Etsy sales, a top 10 list. If you enjoyed the list and learned something, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. It really helps me out. Leave a comment if you have any questions below that I might have missed. I've got some more thrift store finds videos, and I also got a new camera, so it'll probably hopefully be a lot easier to take videos out at the thrift stores and auctions. So that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks. And if you get out there, I wish you the best of luck treasure hunting.